Hello, everyone, and welcome. I wanted to talk this week a bit about identity. I've been thinking a lot about how um, we, we come into this world and we eventually create an identity. For the most part, from early on in childhood, that identity is given to us. We are given a name. We're given, you know, into a family, and those people often surround us and speak our identity into our lived experience. So, a lot of what we grow up knowing ourselves to be is what other people have told us that we are. And then at some point, individuation begins, and we start to develop and form our own identity. And often that can come in the midst of heavy, painful experiences that are right alongside forming that identity, almost so much so that we can easily mistake ourselves as those experiences. We can easily, and especially if there aren't people in our lives reflecting back that you are not that trauma that occurred to you, you are not that, you know, you are not that hurt that was happening in your family, you are not that wound, those um those formative experiences can become woven into the fabric of our identity. And we can easily forget that, like, identity is a clothing and it's very optional. You know, it is, name in our culture, it's name, address, demographics, what you do for a living. Um, but none of that is who you are. And none of that is who you were created to be. And none of that encapsulates the pure, essential, um, creative life force that exists inside of you. And then I think along the spiritual journey, as we reclaim our creative self-expression, it is the actual process of reclaiming our identity. And not an identity that's like an overcoat. It's like I'm not taking off my black sweatshirt to put on a teal dress, that kind of identity. It's really a stripping bare to rediscover that which actually created me, that which actually formed me from nothing. Like, you were formed from nothing to material substances, and we can think about it on a biological level. Your father's sperm, your mother's egg came together in empty space and fused into you. But who were you? You were nothing. In the womb, you had no identity, only that which could be projected upon you, you know. And then eventually you were born, you were given a name, you were told about yourself and who you are and who your family is, and all of the stories that came with. And those things, and then, of course, when you're little, you don't even have much memory of yourself. And so when people say often that they're like remembering who we are, I really think that's true because there is an essential nature that is forgotten the moment we emerge from the womb. The nothingness that we came from, the creator that created us. And maybe it's intentional as a part of the creative process, the creative act of our life that we have to forget. We have to forget, and then we have to go through a selective remembering process. And meanwhile, as we go through our life and our individuation, and be trying on different forms of identity. And one of the things I was thinking about yesterday is just like returning to my relationship with Jesus, right? This is an identity from my childhood. I grew up with um my father going to church, going to Sunday school, praying in discipleship groups with people in the church, and really being taught to be an obedient child, someone who loved God. And the love of God stuck with me, but a lot of my adolescence and in my early 20s was stepping away from that identity entirely and trying on different things. I spent a lot of time um, studying Buddhism and working for a meditation center and practicing hundreds of thousands of hours of meditation with some of the most famous Buddhist teachers in the world. That was an identity, that I practiced yoga. I trained as a vinyasa yoga teacher. I did, 500 hours of training, and then I became a teacher. I took on the identity of an astrologer. I studied for years and I apprenticed with astrologers and became an astrologer. Like these were all identities. They were clothing that I put on, you know, that in just the same way clothing highlights the physical vessel, the body, which is the suit that we inhabit to express. We express our identity through that suit. If you know me in person, I have many tattoos, and they are thing I love tattoos, and I've collected them over the years, and I would have more, you know. Uh, I just, but each one has been a piece of my identity. And there are some, you know, which from my youth, my childhood, I don't resonate with that identity anymore. But they're on me and permanently. So there's nothing that I can do to, you know, I can cover them up, but they're until I die and my body passes on, they're not um, removable. I'm not going to remove my tattoos. I love them, and a lot of them contain uh, essential lessons for me, or they're markers of rites of passage, of steps of individuation or change or loss. Some of them mark passages of grief in my life. Um, you know, they are often markers of very profound lessons that I've come through, or prayers that I hold, prayers. But these are all just temporary forms of identity. And my point being that as a soul, our essential true identity is, that God is love. That love created us to express, to give, and to receive, to shine the light of love into the world. That is our true identity. That essential identity cannot be changed. It can never be removed. It can be covered over. We can be in states of depression, fear, anxiety. We can feel separate from that love, from our truth, from who we are. we can forget, and need to engage in a process of remembering that identity. But that identity can never be changed. And it carries on um, eternally, right? When people talk about eternal life, I don't think that like I'm going to expire from this body and then go to some place where I get to, have a Maserati and like the Louis Vuitton bag that I've always wanted. And, or my dreams are going to come true and I'm going to be frolicking in nature with, communicating with the foxes and dancing, and wearing flowers in my hair. No, I simply know that when my soul returns to its essential home, it will just be my love, the love that I am, returning to my source. That's it. And Jesus came, he knew himself as the love of God, and that love, he said these were the greatest of the commandments, that God is love, and to love thy neighbor as thyself. In order to love thy neighbor as thyself, we have to know thyself as love, right? You have to know yourself as love in order to be able to extend love. And of course, if we're going through a period of time where we've forgotten who we are, we may need to try on identities in order to reconnect with that love. And the creative process in and of itself is a expression of that identity in order to reconnect with the self, the true self, right? Because essentially what we are doing when we are creating and when we are activating that essential self, that connection to the love that we are, we're giving birth to something in the world that expresses that. I've always thought that like the reason why pregnant women glow is because they have the love of God growing inside of them. We have the essential soul, the light of the soul. I've been able to tell that I was pregnant every single time by looking in the mirror and seeing that light emanating in a way that you just don't see when um, any other time, except for the times in my life when I've been in a state of awakening. I've felt that also that light emanating from myself. But it's not as though that's not who I am. It's just as in those times in my life where I've been disconnected from that, I've not been able to feel that presence, that connection inside myself. And I do think that our longings for love in our life, the prayers that we carry, are also connected to that essential creative self. There is a reason why the soul desires to express itself in various different ways. And whatever identity we have to take on in order for the soul to express that is a necessary part of the process of the soul remembering who it is. We can't, and I wish that we could be born into a world where the template for ourselves was so loving. I mean, this is a part of my creative work with children. Why I really feel the essential nature of the child is that creative spark and that creative essence. And why I think it's so important for adults to create spaces in which they can create without inhibition. Their own judgment will already start to come in once they've been in the world a little bit too long, to where the conditioning around that's good, that looks beautiful, that's bad. And this is why AI can be so detrimental to our development as creative beings, because it creates kind of a standardized form of creation. And then we lose sight of like where, our humble, messy, creative expressions don't match up to this collective meme that is just being offered. Yet what we are is something so unique and beautiful and brilliant that if we try to make ourselves what we are not, if we try and put on the identities, I was thinking about this. I'll go back to the returning to my relationship to Jesus. And you might think that I'm like donning a Christian identity, which isn't true for me if you essentially know me and you know who I am. I spend a lot of time with people in the church, and um I always still feel on some level like an outsider because I'm not wanting to sacrifice my authentic truth in order to be a part of something, but I'm still wanting to walk this path that I'm called to walk with Jesus. And I put on the sweatshirt or the cross, or, I go and, there's a way in which, okay, I can see like there's the dawning of the external identity. But simultaneous to that, there is an essential knowing that those are just temporary things, right? Just the same as, you know, moving into a home. The building that you're in, what you choose to put on the walls, how you choose to decorate it, that's all temporary. It doesn't go with you when you leave this world. It doesn't reflect who you are permanently. There is no permanency in any of that identity. And we can cling to it because it's familiar, because it feels safe, because it feels socially acceptable. But then, of course, there will always come a time where, as my one of people said to me once, Michelle, you've outgrown your pot. There will come a time when that doesn't contain the true essential identity of our love, because the love that we are is bigger than anything. It cannot be contained inside of the physical body, our vessel. It cannot be contained inside of any identity structure, a name that we have, a belief system that we live out. And there will come experiences which fracture that identity, either through a disillusionment with someone or something, end of a relationship, end of a friendship, end of a, I've had many fractures as it relates to career identities where, and I would say I'm probably going through one in the moment, to the extent of like releasing the identity around astrology. And, but I do feel more like I'm aware of that fracture and kind of walking through it, um, feeling the vulnerability, the weakness that it creates in me, you know, letting go of my primary source of income, having no income, having to step into a space of trust. Can I do the thing that I'm being called to do? Having these deep callings in my heart around pilgrimage and wanting to walk with others and lead others in the space of prayer and pilgrimage. And it's vulnerable. It's like, who am I to do that? I don't necessarily have any experience other than my own direct experience. And also teaching children, it's like I'm a painter, but I'm not, you know, um, I'm just doing what I feel called to do. And when we judge ourselves, it's like, I'm not professional, or I'm not I don't have enough experience, right? I'm not this or that. We're looking at the clothing and missing the essential calling of the soul, right? Missing the love that we are, knows everything it needs to know, has everything it needs to have, is all that it needs to be. It can never not be that. It was created by Source. It's an extension, a direct extension of Source. It cannot be without what it is, or it cannot be separate from what it is, but it can feel separate. And I think the more clothes we put on, actually, the more identity that we've donned and tried to like make who we are, the more separate we can feel from who we truly are. And that can be a part of why it feels like such a radical rebellion, setting free of something inside of us. And it's for me strange to be donning an old identity, what I would say, but trying to walk it out with an inner authenticity. Is this true? Is this still true for me? What is true? What is my true relationship to my life, spirituality, Jesus, my path, my soul, my calling? Do I need the things that I've, you know, that I have, you know? Do the clothes in my closet still fit my being, right? It's like I've some things I've gained weight when I was pregnant and not lost all that weight. So some things don't fit and some things do fit. Some things fit, but they don't feel right. They don't feel, I don't even feel like myself, you know? And more we're moving in order to truly live and breathe and be who we are created to be. That's the path. That's the purpose that our creative life has to seek to express that. And at some point we will have to decide to face those early identities, the ones that still hurt, the ones that are still wounded, the ones that we have been told who we are, what our name is, what our family is, what our cultural identity is. We will have to face those and how they've shaped who we believe ourselves to be. And maybe we'll have to let them go or bury them, or maybe we'll have to acknowledge them for, how they've shaped us, like the wounds that we have, the hurts that we've experienced, of course, then shape who we are. And we can use that to create something new. We don't have to, that doesn't have to prevent us from becoming who we're meant to be. It doesn't, it can be like a coat. We just decide, I'm not that's a painful coat. Well, I've been wearing it. It has holes in it. It smells. It's terrible. I'm just going to take that off and I'm going to throw that out. I'm going to burn that. I'm going to recycle that. I'm going to let that, I'm going to give that back to God. I'm going to say, God, okay, you healed this. You know, you help me see myself differently, see myself new. And we can do that with shame. We can do that with guilt because those are not true identities. They are ways in which we've metabolized experiences. And often we take shame and guilt and we make it a part of the fabric of who we are and we wear it all the time. And then we react to it because it hurts to carry that. And often that reaction to it creates more of the same, unfortunately. It creates a structure of believing ourselves to be something that we're not. And this is where the creative process can help us to express some of that, to offer some of that back to God for healing, back to, oh, so my friends, I just pray that as you are going through whatever process of shedding layers, healing, revealing more of yourself to yourself, and come to see this love that you are, and that the creative process itself helps reveal that, to you, that you begin to see through your own creativity who you are, the love that you are, and that more of that spills out into the world, into every corner of the world, because the world does not need more identities, more personas, or more, you know, suits of our wounded armor, but needs more people who have undressed themselves to themselves so that they know who they are and are expressing that love unconditional, right? Unconditional love doesn't have any identities. It I think exists because it perceives through the illusions of our identity and loves us beyond all those. And when we touch that, when we experience that, there's a freedom, because then we can just be who we are. And then we can love as we are created to love. And so my prayer for you is that your creative life just expresses this truth of who you are, and that you begin, as we all are, walking this path of expression, of creative self-expression, that we begin to know ourselves more and more deeply, that the words that we use, the things that we do, that we become more clearly seeing who we are as love, and have the courage to share that with the world. So, all right, my friends, lots of love. If these messages touch your heart, leave me a little note in the comments. I love hearing from you, even a little emoji. And give this video a thumbs up. If you're new here, you can subscribe to this channel. I offer prayers and reflections on creative self-expression, wisdom, things that just come from my own direct experience, what I'm learning in my life. And I love sharing this path with you. I'm so grateful for your presence here. Thank you. All right. Bye for now.